Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this evening's webinar. I'm Eric Childress, the Client Services Manager here at JARALL Medical Management. Before we get started, there are a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to review with all of you. We will have a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. At any time, feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A button, which should be at the top of your screen. Our speakers will address your question during the live Q&A at the end. Also, this webinar will be recorded and emailed to all of you on Friday. With that, the topic of our webinar today is optimizing your front office processes. I'm joined by our presenters, Dr. Alan Bass, CEO and founder of JARALL Medical Management, and Sara Tradup, Revenue Cycle Management Specialist here at JARALL Medical Management. And I will now hand the webinar over to our presenters. Dr. Bass.
Eric, thank you so much. I'd like to thank everybody for attending this evening. We try to put these webinars on once a month, and I have to thank my co-presenter, Sara Tradup, who is a fantastic revenue cycle management specialist for me here at JARALL, for coming up with tonight's topic, because she found it to be so important from a lot of the feedback that she's been getting from a lot of our clients. So Sara, thank you so much for this topic. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to try to just set out some strategies for you to implement in your office to be efficient, accurate, and have really good patient satisfaction. You're talking to us from two separate sides of the country. I'm on the East Coast. Sarah's all the way out there in the West Coast in Arizona. I'm going to apologize ahead. I am actually sitting in a hotel this evening because I'm speaking at a conference to the podiatric medical assistants in New Jersey tomorrow. So if my internet is a little wonky tonight, it's because I'm in a hotel. So let's get started. And like Eric said, we'll take all the questions at the end. He's monitoring the Q&A for everything. So tonight, this is our agenda. We're going to talk about some best practices for how you should be answering your phone, some information on scheduling, understanding the differences between copay, coinsurance, and deductible. Probably the most important things are reading a commercial insurance card. I can't begin to tell you how often both Sara and the rest of my team tells me that they hear from clients that, they just don't understand the differences in all the insurance cards. And that's really what we're going to run through this evening as well. We're going to talk about the difference between Medicare and Medicare Advantage. We'll talk a little bit about collection strategies, some metrics, and what we're going to do next. So sit back and relax and post those questions, and we'll cover them at the end. So, your front desk is really the first impression everybody gets when they call your practice. How the phones are answered, how long they have to wait, if they hang up, these things are really a big impression on your practice. So not only is it important to understand setting up specific and best practices for answering the phone, it's important to make sure you understand the best ways to even answer your phone. So many times people ask me, should I have a virtual assistant? Should I have somebody who answers the phones? I think it's very important for you to have the right person in the right job. So whether it's somebody you feel has a great personality, or somebody who is more just a computer nerd, these people are, important decisions you need to make on why people are calling. And especially when patients are calling, and new patients and existing patients are calling, they're going to call having really different attitudes sometimes. Some people might just be looking for an appointment, and it could be a regularly scheduled appointment and it's not so urgent. You can have people who are calling for very urgent appointments, and they have to be handled differently. People calling with different billing matters. Somebody could be very upset if they get a bill in the mail and they don't know exactly why they're getting it. So they could be be a little standoffish. So making sure you have the right person answering the phone is important. If it's a clinical question, if you trust your staff to answer some basic clinical questions, having the person with the right knowledge there is very important, because this is the first impression of your practice, really more than anything else, and you want it to be something good. So some best practices. I speak to some different coaches, and one of them is her name is Tina Del Bono out in California, and she always said, answering the phone within 3 rings is very important, and understanding that you have to make sure the patient and the person calling knows who they're talking to. It shouldn't just be Dr. So-and-so's office. It should be a very polite, respectful response when they pick up the phone. Thank you for calling. If you want to use my old practice before I came here, Central Jersey Foot and Ankle Care, this is Gail. How may I help you? That way, the person on the other end knows who they're talking to. They made sure they called the right practice. The funny thing, when I was in my practice, and the name of my practice was Central Jersey Foot and Ankle Care, there was actually a practice, Central Jersey Ankle and Foot Care. And sometimes people called the wrong practice, and we never tried to steal a patient. We just said, no, that's the wrong, this is not that practice, and this is their phone number to call. But understanding that people want to be treated respectfully, warmly, and professionally is very important. You can always tell if somebody is in a good mood. Somebody could tell if you're smiling. Somebody could tell if you're having a good day or not. And having somebody on the phone that portrays that they're in a good, upbeat mood is important, because that is a reflection of the physicians of your practice. You should always be asking the caller their name, so you could address them by their first name. You can also ask whether or not they want to be called Mr. or Ms. or by their first name. Being respectful is very important. I think that's vital. Speaking in plain language is so important. Don't try to speak in medical jargon, whether it's talking about specific diagnoses you may have heard or procedures you may have heard. Just speaking in straight language, you don't want to seem like you're talking over those patients or prospective patients. So you want to make sure that they understand what you're talking about. Whenever somebody is making an appointment, it's so important to confirm those details back to them before you end the call. Today I had to I made a doctor's appointment. So before the call ended, the young lady's name was Vanessa. She said she confirmed my appointment with the doctor on Friday at 9:10 in the morning at the office location that I was seeing them at. That's so important. I will tell you that when I was in practice in Manalapan, New Jersey, there were 9 different podiatrists in my small town. Confirming my address, where we're located off the main road at a main intersection, was very important. And never put somebody on hold without asking permission. It drives me nuts when I call someplace and they answer the phone and they immediately say, hold on, and it goes blank, or it goes to music. It happens all the time. As you must know, some of the larger pharmacies nationwide, in my area, CVS, Walgreens, they answer the phone, CVS Pharmacy, please hold, and they put me on hold. To me, that is the most disrespectful thing you could do. You could ask to put me on hold, and I could say no, and I'll say I'll call back, but you should at least be respectful and ask that person first. Scheduling. Making sure you understand scheduling is so important. Making sure that you have an understanding of specific appointment types and how long those appointment types are very, very important. For instance, when I was in practice, I knew that, and I always wanted, my new patient appointments had to always be 30 minutes in length. Never wanted to rush that patient. A post-operative appointment for maybe a soft tissue procedure like a a lesion removal or an ingrown follow-up from an ingrown toenail, my office knew that it could be 10 minutes, that it could be very, very, and I ran a very, very tight ship. I was never a fan of double booking. I always made sure that my patients understood that their time was valuable to me just as my time is valuable to them. And I will tell you that in all of my years in practice, making sure patients understood how I like to run on time and to be 15 minutes early if you're a new patient, they appreciated that. There are some doctors who just don't care about that. And there was a doctor in my town who would double and triple book each and every appointment time. And patients would wait 2 hours for an appointment. And to be perfectly honest, I was thrilled that that doctor stayed in town, because that doctor's patients who were unhappy with how long it took to see the doctor once they were at the office caused them to come over to my practice as well. Canceling and rescheduling. You have to understand your patients. One of the things that I made patients understand is I respect their time. And I laid that out right at the beginning. They understand that they had to respect my time. And I say that because when I had patients who would ask me for a last appointment of the day, they could get that last appointment as long as they know they had the last appointment. And if they did not show up for their appointment and did not call, if they were just a no-show, that patient never got the last appointment again. So there needs to be this understanding and respect between your patients and your practice when scheduling appointments. And you also have to understand that if you have a multi-physician practice, that your different providers may practice differently. One physician might be able to practice more quickly and efficiently, and their scheduling might be different. So understanding proper scheduling is important right from the start, because that is something that's going to cause problems down the line throughout your day. If you don't understand right from the beginning, if it's poorly scheduled, the first or second appointment, that is going to impact the entire day. So understanding that is very, very important. Information when you schedule appointments. Now, I understand that some of us take appointments over the phone. Some of us have portals. If you're scheduling on the phone, first name, last name, and the legal name is important. Date of birth, contact phone number, the best contact phone number, not just can I have your home phone number or can I just have your cell number. The best contact phone number is very important. Insurance carrier, the ID, the group number, and a customer service phone number on the back of an insurance card. When the phone call starts and the patient is looking to make an appointment, one of the things you should be saying right off the bat is, I just want you to know I'm going to be asking for your some information off your insurance card. Maybe you can just have that handy while I'm taking some other information from you. That way that call goes, you get the information you want, and the call goes very smoothly. You like to ask what's the reason that they're coming in and who is their referring provider. Number one, we like to make sure we understand what they're coming in for so we could have the right scheduled time for them. And number two, being able to say thank you to a referring provider is so important to me. That's the best marketing you could do for your practice, knowing who the referring provider is, letting your doctor know who it is, and then sending a thank you, or sending the letter on that patient, if that doctor referred them for a specific problem, sending it back for their medical records. And then, of course, what is their preferred date, time, and what provider if there's a multi-physician practice. Some people need, want morning appointments. Some people, early morning appointments. Some people want late evening appointments. I worked where I was living in central New Jersey. I had people who used to commute into New York City, and then, I used to have more evening appointments than anything else because a lot of people saw me when they came home from work. And if you are doing some online scheduling, if you have an online portal, it's very important to not only get that same information that you would get from a phone call, but since it's digital, getting an email address, asking for an emergency contact. If the person has the ability to upload images of their insurance card, if they're doing it on their phone, if they're doing it on an iPad, being able to possibly take pictures of it and uploading it. If not, having them come into the office, like I said, 15 minutes early. I think it's also very important that if patients do online scheduling, that you have all of your consent and intake questionnaires right there. Let them fill it out at home, not being under pressure. You always ask patients to come in 15 minutes early, but guess what? Sometimes that doesn't happen. But if they've taken the time to fill out these forms and questionnaires ahead of time, it saves a lot of time. Probably the most important thing that we try to stress with our clients at JARALL Medical Management is if your EHR has the ability to do eligibility verification, insurance eligibility verification, even at the time that they are scheduling the appointment, if it's possible to enter that insurance information, you can know right away whether or not that insurance information is accurate. Sarah's going to talk in a few minutes about verifying the insurance through your EHR, through the different EHRs that we work with. But as a general rule of thumb, insurance eligibility is one of the biggest roadblocks that practices don't do that hold up claim submission. This is just one of a few forms that we're going to show tonight. These forms are all going to be available once you get the webinar sent to you, or a link to the webinar back to the JARALL Medical Management website. All of the forms that we're going to show tonight will be housed there, so you feel free to download them and edit them and use them for your practice. This form here is an appointment triage form, just to give you an idea of what information you would want to be taking the information at a phone call, or if information that you want to make sure gets uploaded online. With that, I am going to now turn it over to Sara, who's going to talk about eligibility and is going to really go through and is going to maybe gloss over them maybe a little more quickly, but all the different images of different insurance cards that you can see. We tried to put together a large gallery of insurance cards. So thank you, Sara. So I'm going to click over to the next slide and I'm going to turn it over to Sara. Sara, go right ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Bass. First of all, I want to discuss why it is so important to do an insurance verification. Dr. Bass touched on it, but it prevents claim denials. Just today, I had at least 6 claims that were rejected because it had the old insurance information on them. So it happens, and we need to do what we can to try to avoid that. It also will confirm what's covered so that you can relate to your patient what services are covered, what services are not, which leads to a happy patient. It will identify the patient's responsibility so that you'll know whether you should be collecting a copay or a deductible or a co-insurance, or you'll know what services aren't covered that you'll need to collect for, so that you can collect more at the time of service rather than trying to collect it 2 or 3 months down the road. It ensures that prior authorizations are done because you can check when you're doing the verification if a prior authorization is needed, and if it is, get it. It will improve the patient experience because they're not going to get a lot of unexpected bills because you're going to be able to relate to them what's covered and what's not. You can also confirm coordination of benefits, and what this means is when they have more than one insurance, they coordinate together. You can find out if the Medicare secondary, do they pick up their deductible, or different questions like that. Also, and this is a really important one too, it confirms the provider network status. Just because you have a contract with Aetna does not mean you are on every single Aetna network. There's a lot of these new limited networks, especially with the exchange payers. So you have to really watch out for that too. It's important to ask if you're on the network or not. Reduces compliance risk because you are making sure that you're getting the auths when you need them, the referrals when you need them, providing records when you need, whatever needs to be done. And it's going to improve your workflow efficiency because you're not going to have a lot of errors to fix down the road when they come back denied. Next slide. There's 3 different options for verifying insurance. The first one, Dr. Bassett mentioned, is your EHR program itself. Most of them do verification now. However, it does give you limited information, doesn't tell you everything. It will give you basic information, deductibles, co-insurance. It'll tell you some basic things that are covered, but it will not go into detail like routine foot care or orthotics, anything like that. It will not tell you if you're in or out of network. And the number one thing that I want to mention about these is when you do a verification, pay attention to it. So many times I get a claim denied, and I'll go back to the patient's account and I'll see that it says right on there, not active. And no one paid any attention to that. So please, if you're going to run it through your EHR program, pay attention to what's saying. Also look at any discrepancies or anything like that it may show you, because it may be giving you a different ID number. It may be giving you a different group number. And so if it gives you information like that, be sure that you're reading it and you're taking it into account and making changes as necessary. The other option is to go to the payer website or Availity, Navinet, some of these sites that work with multiple payers. You can get a little more detailed information in these sites, but there's still some limitations as to what you can get. Some of them will tell you if you're in or out of network, some will not. So it just kind of depends on which one you're looking at there. Now, of course, the best way to do it is a telephone call, but I know that not everybody has the time to do that. But that is the best way to do your verifications because you're going to get all the information you need. It does take a little more time to do it, of course, but when you're speaking to an actual person, you can ask them any question you want. So you can ask them, is routine care covered? You can ask them, is orthotics covered? You need to ask the questions. Don't expect the rep to volunteer any information. They're not going to tell you anything if you don't ask. So you have to ask the right questions. And here is one form. We have 2 forms here for sample and insurance verification form. This one requires a little more filling in. The other one is more of a checkbox. But this will go over all the information that you need to get when you're talking to them on the phone, or if you're trying to do it through the website or whatever, you can still use these forms to get as much information as you can. The coverage information at the bottom of this particular form, if you want to change it, you can change it. Maybe you don't do routine foot care in your office, or you do a lot of wound care or something. You can change your questions, but always when you're asking for specific coverage information, always ask them if there's any restrictions or limitations. Such as, you can only have 1 pair of orthotics a year, or it's only covered with this diagnosis. Because if you don't ask that question, again, they're not going to tell you. So you need to ask. And this one here is a little bit different. It's more of a checkbox system. There's a few areas to fill out. So you can, look at the 2 and see which one works better for your office and maybe tweak whichever one you like. But there's just 2 different samples of an insurance verification form that you can use when you're on the phone. Surgical insurance verifications are just a little bit different. You're going to need more detailed information. It's always best to call for surgical verifications because we're dealing with, quite a bit of money here, and a lot of these will have to be authorized. So it's always just better if you go ahead and do these on the phone call. When you call, be sure you have the information you're going to need. You're going to need the patient's basic info, their name, date of birth, ID number, group number. You will also need your facility name and the NPI number of that facility. A list of CPT codes that you're going to be billed along with the applicable diagnosis. First off, make sure that you're in network. Make sure your facility is in network. Once you're past that, then you can get your basic benefits, such as how much deductible do they have remaining, what is their co-insurance or copay for surgery. And then you can go through each individual code and ask them to check to see if that particular code needs authorization. And then, of course, if it does, begin the authorization process. And this last one, this goes with any time you call an insurance company. Get the name of the person you spoke with, the date, time, and reference number. It doesn't matter what you're calling them about. If you're calling the payer's office, get this information. Next slide. And this next slide then is another form that you can get. This one is just a sample surgical verification form. And you can see down towards the bottom where we've got several lines there to put your individual CPT codes and your diagnosis codes, and then whether or not they need auth. So that's just another one of the forms that will be up there. Next slide. Excuse me. Copays, coinsurance, and deductibles. Most of you probably know what these are, but I'm going to go through them just to make sure, because there are some out there that don't quite get it. The copay is a dollar amount. It's a flat dollar amount that the patients are expected to pay every time they come into the office. This is usually paid whether they have a deductible or not, but that will be a flat dollar amount. Then you have your deductibles. Deductibles can be anywhere from $500 to $50,000. Well, not maybe not that high, $5,000. Whatever, but you need to find out if your patients have a deductible. Most of the time, the insurance company will not pay anything until that deductible kicks in, has been paid. Once in a while, you'll have a copay just for the office visit, but most of the time, everything goes to the deductible. Once the deductible is met, then you're going to have a co-insurance in most cases. 80-20 is the normal split, but there are some that are 70-30, 60-40. You need to find out how much it is. And each policy can be very different. Some will have a copay and no deductible. Some will have a deductible and coinsurance and no copay. So this is why it's important to get that verification so that you're collecting the right amount of money. And always tell the patients ahead of time, especially when you're dealing with deductibles, so that they're prepared when they come in to visit, that they know they're going to have to pay their deductible at that time, and they don't get some surprise that they have to pay $250 today because their deductible hasn't been met. So that pretty much covers the verification. So now we're going to go into reading an insurance card. This is going to help you to make sure that we get the right information entered into the system. It's going to create a less delays, less denials. In the insurance verification success rate before the visit is much higher than trying to do it after the visit. This will go over some eligibility issues that some of these you can tell just from the card. And claim denial reasons that are tied to front desk errors. The claim denials can come in with all different kinds. If we have the wrong information, it could be the wrong payer information is put in there. It can be the ID number is either incorrect or missing a number or something. The group number's missing. The patient's name is spelled wrong. Different things can cause claims to be denied. And believe me, the insurance companies are looking for a reason to deny the claims. So, it's going to increase your copay collection rate at the check-in if you have the cards there and you read the cards properly. And you're going to save time resolving billing issues, because if we get it right the first time, we don't have to deal with it later. Otherwise, later on, I'm going to be sending you a note and I'm going to be asking you to please call this patient, find out what's going on. This insurance is not working for whatever reason. The front of the card usually contains, and I say usually because there are some that are kind of a little off of this plan, but most of them contain the insurance carrier name and logo, the member's name, member ID number, and group number. They'll usually tell you what type of plan it is, whether it's an HMO, PPO, EPO, POS. And most of them will tell you the copay amounts, and they will list a separate one for office visit, specialist, ER, urgent care. There's all a bunch of different guidelines for copays. The back of the card is going to primarily have the claim submission address and the payer ID. The provider services phone number, there's usually a couple of them, one for eligibility and benefits, one for authorization, and pre-authorization and referral phone numbers. So all that should be on the back of the card. Always scan both sides when you're getting copies of the card. The only exception to that would be the Medicare card, because the back of that's always the same and doesn't really tell us anything. But any other card besides Medicare, scan the back and the front, because there's important information on both. Some red flags that should cause a little, a red flag. HMO. If you see the word HMO, you see the word exchange, you see the word bronze, silver, or gold. Bronze, silver, and gold are the different levels of exchange plans. The exchange plans are the ones that patients can purchase off of the internet, what used to be called Obamacare. I'm not sure if it's still called that or not, but those claims, those plans and HMO plans will often have very limited networks. And this is what I was saying before, just because you're in Aetna doesn't mean you take all Aetna plans. Chances are, if there's an Aetna exchange plan, you're probably not going to be on it. They get doctors that will take very low fees to get onto those limited networks so that they can keep this premiums down for the patients. So it's a very small network of of doctors. They usually have no out-of-network benefits. So if the patient comes in and gets seen, and they're going to end up having to pay the entire bill because they have no out-of-network benefits. And often these plans, if you do participate with them, they're often going to require a referral. There are two types of referrals, and you need to make sure which type is required. There is the payer-approved referral, and this is a referral that has to go through the insurance company. Usually they'll issue an authorization number, but it has to be approved by the insurance company. Then there's the PCP written referral, which some of them just require you to get something in writing from the PCP. It doesn't have to go through the insurance, but you always want to make sure that you verify which one is which. Now I'm going to do this kind of quickly here because we've got a bunch of cards I want to show you. This particular one is a small payer using a larger network. This one, you see the Aetna logo, but if you turn the card over, it says claim submissions goes to Meritain. This is because Meritain is a smaller company. It's not that small, but it is a smaller company, and they are using Aetna's network of physicians, but they are processing their own claims. So just because you see the Aetna logo does not mean it goes to Aetna. So flip the card over and make sure where the claims are supposed to go. This one here is a Blue Cross and Blue Shield card. Blue Cross and Blue Shield cards, it is imperative that you get that 3-digit letter number at the beginning. So this one has JWQ. That information is imperative. It has to be there because you're sending your claims to your local Blue. If you're in Ohio, they're going to Ohio Blue Cross. If you're in California, they're going to California. That JWQ tells your state what state the plan actually comes from, so they can coordinate with that other state. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But it's very important. The other one is Blue Cross Federal. Those will always start with R. And the R has to be there, even though everybody knows it, that still has to be there. So, and the Blue Cross, just always make sure you're getting those letter prefixes on there, whether it be the 3-1 or the R for Federal, either one. Next slide. TRICARES. A lot of people are trying to use the DOD number, which if you look on, this is the old TRICARE card, or actually military ID, but it's the old one. If you look on the front, it says DOD number 1074. That is actually a number that is only used for military. That DOD number does not work for medical claims. For medical claims, you have to use the benefits number. And the benefits number is on the back of the old TRICARE cards. And I've circled it there for you so you can see where it's at. But that's the number you need, is the benefits number, not the DOD number. Go ahead to the next one. And this is the newer cards. And these have on the back of the card, it has the DOD number, and right next to it is the benefits number. And again, you want the benefits number, not the DOD number. Next slide. These are just to show the difference between Medicare cards. The one is actually supposed to be red, white, and blue too. It just was a black and white copy. But at the bottom of the card, if it says Railroad Retirement Board, then you need to set it up as Railroad Medicare, not traditional Medicare. That has to go to a different payer. And that's the only way to tell the difference is by looking at that where it says Railroad Retirement Board on the bottom. Now we get into the fun part, Medicare versus Medicare Advantage cards. Medicare plan, the original Medicare, traditional Medicare, is the red, white, and blue cards. It's issued by the federal government. There's 11-character ID number with letters and numbers. Part A is for hospital, Part B is for medical, so we're all Part B. There are no network restrictions, and we will bill Medicare directly. The other option is Medicare Advantage. This is considered Part C by Medicare. It's issued by a private insurer like United Healthcare, Humana, or Aetna. You will have an ID number that United Healthcare, Humana, Aetna, they have put out. So it may have letters, it may have numbers, who knows what it may have, but they'll have their own ID number. These may require referrals and prior auth, usually the HMO ones. Most of the PPOs don't, but the HMOs will often require referrals and prior auth. You do need to belong to the network for the HMOs. The PPOs, most of those, as long as you have a Medicare contract, you're fine. But the HMOs, you do have to participate with the plan. And these are going to get billed to the carrier, to United Healthcare, to Humana, to Aetna. They're not going to be billed to Medicare. And let me say this, Medicare is not a secondary to these plans. This is replacing Medicare. It's not in addition to Medicare, it is replacing Medicare. So don't add Medicare on as a secondary when you have a Medicare Advantage plan. Here's a sample of a Medicare Advantage plan so you can tell which one it is. It's got the word Medicare Advantage all over it. Medicare, Medicare here, Medicare there. It's all over the card. So that's going to give you the information there that this is a Medicare Advantage plan. Here's another one from Aetna. Same thing. Medicare PPO, Medicare Advantage plan. It's all over the card. And I think I have one more here with Humana. I think I might actually have one more. The Humana one doesn't have as much, but it does at the top of the front page. It says Medicare health plan. So that's all those things are going to tell you this is most likely a Medicare Advantage. And then the last one I have is a Blue Cross Blue Shield one. And this again is an HMO one again. And then the other option is Medicare Supplement. When they have a traditional, and the reason I put these up is this just happened to me just a couple weeks ago with several patients. They came in, and for some reason, patients seem to think we have access to their Medicare information. I don't know why, but they have. I've been doing this for 30 years, and they've always seemed to think that. So when you ask them for the insurance, they just give you their supplement card. But we need their Medicare card too. So if you see the words Medicare Supplement on a card, be sure you ask them for their Medicare card, because there's a lot of times they're not going to volunteer it. So that's all I wanted to say about that one. So at this point, that's all I have on verifications and insurance cards. We'll do any questions at the end, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Bass now.
Sarah, thank you so much. That was was perfect, and this information is so important. And as everybody knows, it's going to be. This has been recorded, and you'll be able to view this again at your leisure. Just a few last slides that I wanted to go through with you. When talking about Medicare and DME and durable medical equipment, remember that durable medical equipment for Medicare gets billed to a different jurisdiction. Depending on your state, there are only 2 Medicare jurisdictions in the country. CGS is one of them, Noridian is another. You could see by the state where you'd be. I gave you the websites. You'll have access to this, and you can search to sign up for the Medicare portals to be able to check for things. You have probably heard the term same and similar, to make sure that you're not dispensing DME, that it won't get covered if somebody may have had the DME previously in a short duration of time. I also just wanted to talk a little bit about patient balance collection strategies. I'm a huge fan of trying to collect payment from patients when they come into the office and not have to send out patient statements. The more you could collect at a follow-up visit, the better off you're going to be. So whether it's sending out notices 7 days ahead, 3 days ahead, and when the patients are coming in the day of their visit, you should have a script that you go by that makes you feel comfortable speaking to the patient to let them know that they've got a balance from a previous visit. And I just put a little script there at the beginning, and able to do this. Also, for collecting patient balances, if your EHR has it set up where you can have text to pay or have a portal that patients can use. It's so important. Certain states may allow you to keep credit cards on file, but you have to make sure that you follow all the proper banking regulations if you're going to keep any credit cards on file. Some different metrics I tell people that they should be checking on. Insurance and billing accuracy, insurance verification rates, 95%, or it should be 100%. You should be checking that insurance all the time. Patients have copays. They should be collecting that copay at that visit. You know, claim denials are tied to what happens at the front desk, making sure that the front desk does it correctly. Auditing that front desk person, making sure that they're doing it correctly is very, very important. You know, another thing to measure, how long did the patient wait, before they saw the doctor? Are you scheduling correctly? What's your no-show and cancellation rates? And why are patients not showing up in the office? And when patients are calling in, are you putting them on hold? Are they hanging up? These are things that should be monitored. It's very, very important. You know, high denials, low verification, that is a problem there, okay? There's opportunities to improve in all different areas. So just some summary points: a consistent phone and pleasant phone greeting builds trust. Capturing the complete information at scheduling prevents downstream errors. Understanding the insurance terms and their cards is so important. And collections, again, the two words that I love the most when it comes, two most important words in a practice are cash flow. Having the cash in the practice are most important. So, like I just said, auditing your current desk is important. Implementing pre-visit balance collections, tracking the key metrics, and scheduling a follow-up review 30 days to assess progress. So set forth some different steps you're going to take and what percentages you want to hit after 30 days. So with that, I want to say thank you so much. Like I said, to access the forms and the webinar beginning Friday, they're going to be on the JARALL Medical Management website, www.jarallmedical.com. Click on the Knowledge Center. The webinar will be there, and the documents will be there as well. With that, I want to ask Eric, I want to open it up to any questions that people may have put in this evening. Eric?
Thanks, Dr. Bass and Sarah. Wanted to just remind folks, if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A area. We did have a few come in, and I wanted to go through those now.
Sure.
First question. What if we find out after the fact that the patient's insurance was different, even if we checked eligibility prior to the visit?
Sarah?
That would be, what you want to do on those is, first of all, immediately let your biller know. Let them know about it. It depends. One thing you've got to be concerned about with doing it later is timely filing. A lot of these insurance companies have got a 90-day timely filing. And so we have to be aware of that. If the patient calls in, 4 months later and says, oh, I forgot to give you the right insurance, but it's past timely filing, it's not going to do any good. So that's another reason that we want to try to get them up front. Get the right insurance right away, because we don't want to make sure we've got the right insurance in there before we hit timely filing. But number one thing you need to do is contact your biller immediately and let them know you have new information.
Sure. Eric?
Awesome. Thank you. Next question. How do I know if I'm in or out of network with a specific provider?
I'm going to leave that to Sarah as well.
Good, give that one to me too, okay? The best way is to get on the phone and call the insurance company and have them run the actual patient's number through the system and have them check it, because there are so many different scenarios that can come into play when trying to decide if you have a network. There are other ways. They're not as foolproof, I guess I would say. Like I said, you can check on the portals. You can check. I have it at times. I've gone through, like I needed an Aetna doctor, and so I've gone through the doctor directory, and it'll tell you which plans each doctors are on. But the only foolproof way to do it is to call and say, this is my patient. Can I see them? Am I contracted with this patient's plan?
Another thing, I'm just going to also chime in, Eric, that, working with a revenue cycle management company that also has a credentialing department, if you as the physician, if you're as the front desk or as a physician who might be listening in as well, if you're not sure if you're in or out of network, you're going to have to call. And whether you call or your biller calls, or if you're working with a company such as ours, we have a credentialing department that could always check to see if you are in or out of network as well. So that's important to know as well, because as Sara said, you might be credentialed with, Aetna, but not participate in all of the Aetna plans. So you need to make sure which ones you participate in. Eric?
Thanks. Next question. Can you still use a social security number instead of the benefits number for billing a TRICARE patient?
You can. It has to be the sponsor's social security number. But you can do that. They match up the patient with the sponsor's security number, social security number, and their date of birth. But most of them don't like to give those out anymore. But yes, you can. You still use the sponsor's social security number.
Good.
Awesome. Thanks, Sara. And last question I have, at least for now, our office is always getting phone calls from patients about their statements with a balance due. What can JARALL do to help?
So one of the things that we have now implemented at JARALL is that we now have a dedicated patient call center. So one of the things, prior to me starting this billing company as a consultant, I always said your staff should be doing revenue generating tasks. If they are answering phone calls from patients and trying to make patients happy and having questions about, a specific visit or a patient statement or a claim, that's not a revenue generating task. You should be outsourcing your billing to a revenue cycle management company that offers this service, that works directly with your patients to answer all of their questions. And that's important, because your staff should be doing other things that help generate revenue and generate cash flow. Eric?
Awesome. Thank you. That's the last question I have for now. Does anyone have any additional questions? And you're also welcome to use the raise hand feature if you'd like to just say your question out loud verbally. I will unlock your microphone. Just a few seconds.
Looks like we got a bunch of shy people out there, or they might not be shy. We might have done such a fantastic, well, I should say Sara did such a fantastic job this evening that people have no questions this evening.
There you go.
All right, well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank everybody for attending. Visit the JARALL website for the webinar. That is my email. Should you have any questions about JARALL Medical Management or outsourcing your billing to JARALL Medical Management, feel free to reach out to me. We will be putting on monthly webinars, so for those of you who have registered this evening, look for email blasts about that. Oh. Someone's got a question.
Yep, had one come in.
Wow.
What advice can you give to balance the front desk's entry-level pay with how critical their role is to getting claims paid on time?
Oh,
that's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's a very loaded question. So, it's funny, you could even just have certain, contests. You can have, if you meet certain metrics, everybody, could be in a contest for, Amazon gift cards, or, sending out anonymous surveys to patients, what's been the, was your experience good? But you have to know your metrics before to know how your metrics are after. So if you know how your denial rate is or your front end denial rate is on April 1st, look at that same denial rate on May 1st. And if you have one person who's there, it might be very easy. If you have multiple people there, to be perfectly honest, all EHRs have audit logs. You can see by who was working in a specific patient's chart. Was that person entering data accurately? I hope that answers the question.
We have a few more that have popped in.
Oh boy.
That was on me. I was expecting individual messages, and I got them in a row as comments and did not see those. So I want to make sure that we address those before we let everyone go.
Sure.
All right. So first one, for coinsurance, an example on how this is calculated after meeting deductible, if possible, like an amount or how we can calculate this in the office.
Probably the best way is you're going to need to know your fee schedule for each individual insurance company, or the major ones anyways, the major ones at least. And what you can do then, if you know your fee schedule, you get the codes from your doctor as the patient's checking out. You look up your fee schedule for those codes and add up the fee schedule portion, and then you're going to take their 20% or their 30% of that, and you're going to collect that from them.
Yeah, there's no good way, Eric, without knowing the actual fees, and that's something that all insurances are so different. So having that fee schedule, if it's possible to get that, that'll be the only way that you'll be able to do that based on the fee multiplied by, as Sarah said, the percentage of their coinsurance.
You have to be careful, though, when you're getting your fee schedules. You can get a fee schedule online from most insurance companies, but you also need to check your contract, because your contract may be 95% of their fee schedule or 75% of their fee schedule or whatever. So you want to check your contract as well to make sure you're getting accurate numbers.
Yep. Eric?
Thank you. Next one. When verifying benefits, a lot of times it says deductible remaining, but it is not specified as to if applicable to everything or just procedures. So should we call to get the specifics?
Depends on how specific you want to get. Yes, that's the ideal thing would be to call and ask them, what is the deductible applied to? There are a lot. I just called on one today where they have a copay for the visit, but if they have any procedures in the office, it goes to their deductible. So there are different options out there, and the best way to find out for sure is to make the phone call.
If it's not specified in any type of eligibility verification, phone call is always best. And then especially historically, when I was in practice, I used to sometimes see that there would be a deductible for office visits or E&M visits plus procedures, and there might be a separate deductible for durable medical equipment as well.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful on that as well.
Yeah.
Eric?
Thanks, Joe. Lately, we have commercial plans where patients don't carry physical cards. It's on their phone, so as long as we have the info to verify, do we need to have the card physically scanned into the chart?
Well, it's helpful to have it scanned. I don't know if they can they email you a copy of that or something like that? Because it definitely is helpful to have that card in the system.
And if you don't have the card, the best thing that you can do is literally ask the patient, can I please have your phone, and make sure you try to take down, that's why it's important to have that triage sheet. Take down that information that you would normally get on the back of a card or on a scan, and then scan that into the the patient's chart. You know, the phone numbers, the ID numbers, the group numbers. So sometimes you can't get rid of the paper, but you'll be scanning that into the patient's chart.
Yeah, any kind of verification forms you use or anything, scan all that in the chart, because it can all be used later if we have questions.
Yep.
And that will save us time and save you time too, because we don't have to call you and ask you.
Correct.
I have kind of a two-part question from two different folks, so we'll answer this together. So on the phone when scheduling a patient, should we be confirming the guarantor then or during check-in as well? When is the best time? And then the part two to that is, how do you determine who the guarantor is?
So I'll chime in on this one, Sarah. So the guarantor, normally, a lot of times the guarantor is the card holder. Would be the guarantor. It's important. We used to always ask, if is the best question to ask is the insurance in your name? Are you the policy holder? If you're not the policy, if the person says no, then they're not the guarantor. So if the person says, no, it's my husband or it's my wife's, you know that they're the guarantor. It's important to also get a guarantor's date of birth when doing that, because those are going to be the ways for you to, if you need to call insurance, you need to have the guarantor information, especially, again, think about, and then another thing that's important, if you treat pediatric patients, a lot of times a pediatric patient will come in with a parent. That parent may put their name down as the guarantor, not thinking that they might not be the policy holder. So if the father brings in the child and they put their name down, you have to confirm, are you the policy holder? Because it might be the spouse. So, or vice versa. So just be careful on knowing when the patient or the person fills in the paperwork, whether it's digitally or on paper, are they understanding who the guarantor is? Not just the guarantor for, hey, I showed up today, but the guarantor for the insurance policy itself. Yep. Eric?
Awesome. Next one. Do you recommend using AI or virtual assistants to help with verifications?
Ooh. So, I will say, I'll put my consulting hat on there. I am not a huge fan yet of AI. Is it perfected? No.
Yeah,
virtual
that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, virtual assistants, I think, that is definitely becoming much more prominent. There are a couple of different virtual assistant companies that I've been, speaking with that would be good. But I would not trust, there's so many nuances to not only podiatry, but insurance billing. I wouldn't trust anything to just quote AI or a robot. You need to have somebody calling. You need to have a real person.
We used to, in my last office that I worked at, we would hire either a high school student, a high school senior, usually from a co-op class, or a mother who has kids that just started back at school. She just wants to work a few hours a day. We'd have them come in 3 or 4 hours a day, pay minimum wage, and that's all they did was make phone calls and verify insurance.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Eric?
Next one. Is it most common for the copay to apply to the office visit and procedures to apply to the deductible?
I wouldn't say it's most common. It can be that way. I mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah, it's very common for copays to be, when you read an EOB, it's very common for a copay to be applied to the E&M visit, and the procedures are handled separately, whether that's via a co-insurance, so it goes to a deductible, or if the patient may just have a straight copay. But it's very important to understand that every insurance is different, and understanding how to read an EOB is very important.
Yeah. There are still some out there where copay covers everything that's done that visit. So that's why you have to ask the questions.
Yep. Eric?
Awesome. We have one last question, but Lynn, if you wouldn't mind, give me just a little more clarification on what you mean by your question, and I'll be sure that we get it answered before we wrap.
So while Lynn is retyping her question to you, again, I want to thank everybody for attending this evening. I hope you found tonight's webinar to be informative. We feel that, that JARALL Medical Management is not just, we're not just a billing company. We're a revenue cycle management company where we help practices succeed. We work as a partner to practices to help their bottom line. So if it's something that you are thinking about outsourcing, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to show you the benefits that we're the right company to outsource to, as we are a podiatry specific company, and this is all we do. Did Lynn have a chance to retype that question to us, Eric?
I think she's still working on it, but I do
Oh,
have
boy.
another question while that's happening.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Why do you need the group number? We never put that in, just the ID number.
You don't always need it, but there are some times when I had 2 or 3 just today myself that I was going through that they got rejected because they had the wrong group number on them. Now, if they had had no group number, would they have been rejected? I don't know, but they had the wrong one, so they got rejected. So it can be certain plans, it's very important. If you have like a Blue Cross corporate plan, they're very important to have the group numbers. Because they don't know where they go without the group numbers. So I would say if you can get it, get it. If you can't, most of the time we can get by without it. But if you've got it, put it in there.
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't have Lynn's question. Want to give her just a little bit more, but I was thinking we could also just have Linda email you directly, Dr. Bass.
Sure. Please feel free to, Linda, please feel free to email me your question directly. And if I need to pass it over to Sarah, I'll forward it over to Sarah as well. But as I believe we're coming to the top, we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for attending this webinar. And we look forward to having you participate in future webinars. And any additional questions, please feel free to email me. I want to thank my co-presenter, Sara. Sara, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Eric, thank you for moderating. And with that, we'll be adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.